Vyapt Global Growth Series is a platform that allows organizations to present their narrative to the outer world. It helps in giving deeper perspective through the lenses of experts in the industry. The growth and opportunities shared by the leaders help us to prepare ourselves for upcoming opportunities. It is heartening to see over 12 million touch points in our journey so far. The age of paranormal has seen collaboration as forefront in business priority, and we at Vyapt understand this beautifully. In our growth series today, we have with us Mr. Vikas Agarwal, who is the ex-MD at Siva Logistics. Vikas, with over 2 decades of experience, has been instrumental in his contribution in logistics businesses. Welcome to the growth series, Vikas.
Thank you, Pankaj. It's an honor and a privilege to be part of this series, and I know this is a beautiful project which you have undertaken, and I'm very glad to be part of this today.
We start with the first curiosity, Vikas. What are the opportunities this present crisis has created for the logistics businesses?
Yeah, so this is a very interesting question. I mean, and it is very important for us to, Pankaj, to really look into what has happened post-COVID or when the COVID has hit us badly. There has been a certain trend in the industry, certain trend in the economy, which was continuing. So it will be better if we really look back a year back and then try and see how COVID has shaped up the whole economy and the whole business environment. So if you see, I mean, we all know the geopolitical scenarios. I mean, what was happening, the Brexit, the US-China trade war. We were looking into the South China Sea issues. We were looking into multitude of issues on geopolitical side. And of course, I mean, that was ever hot even before the COVID. And if we even go beyond, I mean, the proliferation of the e-commerce business, that was ever growing as well. So that was also a background which we have seen the growth of the e-commerce business, how the companies started to look into the online platform, and that has, of course, that was one of the other background which we have seen. We have seen the hyper local distribution model, which I mean the Zomato of this world, the Swiggy of this world, how it has shaped up the offline consumption supply, the vendors who were had no access to the online platforms. We have seen that. We have also seen the digitization of the healthcare, which was another trend which was happening for last multiple years. We have seen the online medicines which were being delivered. We have seen some of the testing which was happening, on a home care basis, and we have seen home body economy, which is the millennials and the Generation Z. This group of people love to stay at home, consume everything at home, do online shopping, get entertained at home. So it continued. So this is something which hasn't changed or which is not something which has happened post COVID. We have also seen Make in India, which was a project which the government has started long back. We have seen the need for a local or a global logistic integrated model because there was a huge amount of pain with, for its consumer to or the customers to deal with multiple service providers. And this has been in shape where Maersk has been working on since last 2015-16. And we have also seen the need for a collaboration platform for the supply chain, which is the use of blockchain. So these are a few of the trends which were continuing. And if we see how things have shaped up post-COVID, and if we just look into each individual items, what I have mentioned, the trends, what we were seeing before COVID. So, take for example, let me go one by one, each one of those things, and we will start to appreciate how COVID has shaped a few of our few of the scenarios in the economy. So geopolitical scenario, we are seeing the US-China trade war. It continued, and COVID accelerated the whole move of people and the companies starting to look for alternative to China. And China today, if you see 30% or more than one third of the container movement happens through the ports of China. There was a huge concentration, there was a big risk, and the company started to realize they need to de-risk. And post-COVID, it just accelerated everything. The government started giving incentives to the companies to move away from China. This was not something which was prior to the COVID, but it just moved faster. And there was companies who started to realize they need to have alternative base of sourcing of their raw materials, their finished products. The risk on dependency on few suppliers and few geography was very, very high. and it just moved. So we have seen companies like, Apple, Samsung, they have moved the manufacturing back into India. And this is something definitely has created a huge amount of momentum in India. And this is what, I call it, the COVID accelerated the whole thing. It was not something which got initiated, but it just accelerated the whole thing. Similarly, on e-commerce, the e-commerce, the way the e-commerce was spreading around. If we see through, in last 25 years, the share of e-commerce retail was 18%, and in just 22 weeks, it has reached to 28%. So we have seen an acceleration of 10 decade in almost, less than 8 weeks actually. So we have seen continuous proliferation of the e-commerce business. Of course, it was happening, but it has just accelerated. So decade, the growth of decade, growth has happened in a very, very short period of time. We have seen it across in India. We have seen the amount of e-commerce penetration. We have seen close to 15 to 20% increase in growth in e-commerce business. There are very interesting facts which has come out of all the category of products which has gone into a huge penetration. Alcohol 70%, tobacco 30%, insurance or if you look at the healthcare 30%. And this is what is interesting. So this is what we have seen, the acceleration in the e-commerce proliferation of the e-commerce business. And then we come into homebody economy. The homebody economy, we were talking about the millennials and the Generation Z. But after the lockdown, we were forced to work from home. This has just pushed up the whole game again. So it just accelerated the homebody economy. Similarly, hyper-local distribution model, the Swiggy, Zomatos of this world. This lockdown was a classic opportunity which was given to the offline stores. We were all locked down at home. We needed, the stocks to come in, the grocery has to come in, and we needed it in a short period of time. So the hyper-local distribution model just created opportunity for a lot of offline stores. So this is where you see a huge acceleration, and this opened up the whole opportunity for so many other players. And this, of course, for the logistic industry, this is all opportunities. because more and more we are going into e-commerce side, or we are going online platforms, requires more of the last mile deliveries, and all this created more opportunity. Make in India, for example. We have been talking about make in India, and if I just recently I saw the FDI data. In last 6 months, the economy has done negative growth of 24% and 7.5% in last 2 quarters. And in spite of those slowdown in the economy, the FDI has grown up by 15% in last 6 months. We have touched $40 billion. We talk about the global logistic integrated model. Maersk has been talking about this since 2015 and 16. They finally ended up announcing into September 2020. So this is what I say is, the COVID has accelerated everything. This is nothing new. We are not seeing anything very, very different. Of course, there are a few things which has changed post-COVID. And there are a few developments which are critical for us to understand. There are a few things which has definitely moved in a very different way. We will see a lot of other changes which will happen purely because of the COVID changes. We know flight to digital, omni-channel distribution model, which is, of course, this is again e-commerce and omni-channel distribution. So go-to-market strategy for the customers has changed. They have to be on the online platform. They have to be there because the consumer behaviors have changed. The biggest thing, Pankaj, is important to understand. Almost 90% of the customers have changed their behavior, consumption behavior. 90% customers. That means the companies have lost their loyalties of their customers. Because the customers have tried something new. They have tried something completely which they haven't tried before. So this opens up opportunity for a lot of marginal players who were not there because the customers were not trying them out. And essentially, this gives them a complete new breed of customers which they never had. And this is the big change. This is what I call a big change, because you couldn't change the consumer behavior. And this COVID has created a market opportunity for so many players, which were just marginal. So this is an opportunity for a lot of new players who have come into the foray, who have created the market, who have created a marketplace for themselves, and a big risk for a lot of big old companies who have thrived on their old customers. They are at risk because they may never see their customers coming back. So this is big change.
So Vikas, when you talked about that logistics industry is the lifeline of all industry, and you also talked about that COVID has changed the entire perspective. It has changed the dimensions of business. You also talked about that it has taken away the loyalty, the customer's loyalty, because now they are into all together into different space. Can you also talk about that when there is a lot of changes happening, what are the growth prospects which logistics industry has to offer? And when there are so many changes, are there any transformations required to leverage the changing landscape in this industry?
So in terms of the short to medium term growth, I mean, of course, we are starting to see the volume coming back again after the first 2 quarters of negative growth. I mean, third quarters most likely will break even, fourth quarter will be in positive zone. The volume will start to rise. There will be a problem in the capacity because passenger aircrafts are not available. Almost 60 to 70% of the belly space of the aircraft or the cargo moves on the passenger aircraft. So we will see a challenge around there. What we are going to see is the reset of the costs. The customers will reset their cost base again, because we are living in a very artificial cost environment right now where the companies are paying huge amount of increased cost base. So the companies will be forced to look into where they need to really look into the cost base side. Which we talked about. The other part, we talked about the e-commerce proliferations. I mean, this is continue to grow significantly. There's no denial to the fact. I mean, most of the companies which are not on the online platform will have to go onto the online. So the growth will continue on those sides. Demand for digitization will go significantly because the focus is moving from the inefficient supply chain to a resilient supply chain, and you can't just avoid the digitization of your supply chain. So there is a huge growth potential which will start to appear on the digitization side. What we are going to see on a short-term basis, the warehousing requirement and the storage requirement is going to go up because the companies are starting to refill the warehouses. The inventory has to come back again. So we will see a short-term spike in the warehousing and storage requirements. We will start to see the change in go-to-market strategy, which will evolve towards the online platform for the customers, for the clients. And this is where, some of the change has to happen. And on an immediate basis, we will see more and more companies will start to look for, go-to-market strategy, which will be based on the online platform. We will start to see the customers moving towards more strategic partnership versus the transactional relationship. This will mean for the logistic industry or for the industry that you need to partner with your clients on a long-term basis. And also further, of course, the logistic vaccine, the logistic and distribution for the vaccine distribution. This is going to really spike up the demands and put a huge amount of pressure. And of course, there's a good growth potential. And so these are on a short-term basis to a mid-term basis, long-term basis. Then, of course, there are more dispersion of the network, which is, effectively, the companies will have to de-risk their supply chain. The network has to get dispersed around, the footprints, the production footprints, the distribution footprint has to spread out, which means it's a long-term exercise. So you can't make a change immediately, which is bound to happen and is happening. And of course, but it will take a longer time horizon because it can't be changed overnight. We will start to see a move from just-in-time to just-in-case supply chain, which requires end-to-end visibility. It requires more agile supply chain, which requires more digitization of your supply chain. And this is where, some of the major change will happen. But of course, it's a long-term approach. It can't be done on a very short period of time. We will start to see Make in India making huge amount of progress. A lot of manufacturing shift has to happen and will continue to happen. Manufacturing share of GDP of 16% has to go up. And effectively, more and more companies are going to move to India, and this will create a long-term growth potential for the industry. And finally, I think the acceleration of digitization in 3 focus areas, which is very, very, the digitization has to happen in the local or on the system side or the process side, which means eliminating a lot of paperwork and all the stuff. What you need is more advanced analytics on the digitization side, and of course, more local or community-based system upgradations, which is effectively eliminating a lot of waste. So you need a lot of collaboration on the digitization. So this is all going to create a long-term growth potential for the industry. And this is how I see some of the major growth potential which is going to happen in the industry. And coming back to the transformation, which is the most critical part of it, there are a few critical factors which we need to talk about. Of course, our logistics spend, 14% of the share, of the GDP share is way too high. This cannot continue if you want to be a more agile supply chain infrastructure. This has to change dramatically. It has to come down to 8% level, which means huge amount of investment by the government has to happen. A lot of waste has to be eliminated from our system. And this is definitely a big change which has to happen. The talents in the industry, we are devoid of talents. This will require huge amount of talent to come into this industry. We need more technical, digital savvy people joining our industry. This is where one major change has to happen. We cannot continue with the current supply of the talent base which we have in this industry right now. The government's initiatives, the government has to be the key enabler. We will not be, the government has to draft policies, make changes so that the right infrastructure or the right environment is created so that this industry can flourish. And on the industry side, I think what you need is the integrator, because the customers are in pain. They are in pain because they have to deal with multiple suppliers, multiple service providers, which is not helping them in having end-to-end visibility. And I think this is where, perhaps few companies, the approach by Maersk could change the industry completely altogether. And this is where some of the key changes which has to happen, or the key transformation which has to happen in this industry.
So my third curiosity is, what are the job prospects would this growth and opportunity create for logistics industry?
So Pankaj, as I mentioned, this industry is looking for a big growth horizon. We have started to see already some of the numbers. If I were to quote you some numbers, Amazon in the last 25 years had an employee of 500,000 people. And in last 12 months, they have just doubled the employee workforce. So within 12 months, they have added another 500,000 people in the industry, in the workforce, which is a clear sign the amount of the hiring which is going to happen, specifically which is driven by the e-commerce boom. And effectively, this is all reflected in the numbers. Huge amount of people are going to get onboarded because of this, the change of distribution model, the demands on the last mile deliveries, and this will continue to happen even in India, across the globe. The second part is, we will start to see demand for a more technical savvy, or I would say digital savvy logisticians. A recent survey by McKinsey, almost 90%, more than 90% of these responded. They said, they will be hiring a digital savvy logistician in the team. So, which means there will be more demand from the customer side to have the in-house capability for people to really drive some of the change and evolution of this the digitization of the supply chain. We will start to see some of the demands which will start to appear. The other survey report also stated, almost more than 70% of the respondents stated, their current footprint of production and distribution are not rightly placed. So they will have to revisit their footprints, which means they will need engineers or the logisticians who specialize in network design and optimization. So we will start to see some spike in demands of those people and individuals. And of course, with the explosion in e-commerce and hyperlocal distribution model, the demand for the last mile deliveries will continue in a big way. And we will see huge amount of demand for the workforce to join this industry. And of course, I sincerely hope our industry can offer a good opportunity to absorb a huge amount of talent which is coming out of the graduation schools. And this is something which I think our industry can support.
That's really very nice when logistics industry can absorb so many people. It can create opportunities for so many people, growth prospects, and the kind of job prospect it would create both directly and indirectly. So I think the quarters and years to come is going to serve more people for this logistics industry.
Yeah, I agree completely.
So my fourth curiosity is how do we ensure that our desire to grow remains untouched even in the toughest circumstances?
So this is one of the very, very important question, because the fact is human race is designed to face crisis and survive this crisis. We are all designed for that. And this is not something which, we have proven this in the last 100 years. We have done this for thousands of years. We are not the strongest species, but we have stayed, and we have thrived purely because the human ability to form a bond and to huddle together in times of crisis, to face the situation as a group together rather than as an individual. So this is something which is very important to understand. As human beings, we are designed to face those crises. And Mother Nature, by design, they test you out. This is the best way to weed out the weakest and keep the fittest in the system. And exactly, this is something which we can never avoid. This is bound to happen. It's a cycle. We have to all face it. It all depends how do we challenge, how do we stand up to this. And as a human being, we need to just act, amend, discover, and effectively reform ourselves, and learn our lessons from the past. And effectively, what is so important is we have to act as a group. And as individuals, we stand no chance. So and this is a very classic example. We have, as nation or a people or an industry, for example, we all have to act. There's no room for us to freeze. We have to act like a shark. If we don't move, we die. And this is what exactly the approach we have to make. We cannot afford to freeze ourselves. We have to act. We have to take actions. We have to learn from our past history, and make the right choices. And there are enough examples which I can narrate. Take the example of the shipping industry. How did they behave during this COVID times? This is one industry which has thrived of all. They have made the most money ever they have made in their past history. For the simple reason, because this industry learned from the past. They acted very, very quickly. They did not fight for the top line. They never reacted or chased for the volumes, the market share. And this is what they learned from the past. Because they bleeded when they did those act together. In the past, this is the time when everyone made the right choice. They addressed the cost immediately. They started blank sailing. They reduce their capacity, and you see the results. You see the results of Maersk. You see the results of CMA CGM. You see all shipping line. They made the most profits in last 6 months. This is a record profit levels they have made. So so there is a clear evidence to say if you act rightly, learn from, most likely you are in a better situation. You don't have to even come out of the crisis before you start to make big headway. The other examples I can give you about the company Amazon, for example. We all know Amazon has been a market leader on e-commerce, but see the amount of changes Amazon did in last 6-8 months. They were trying to migrate, transition into big time into the digital healthcare, and today the amount of progress Amazon has made on the digital healthcare side, the company is now touted to be one of the fastest and the largest digital healthcare company in the world. This is amazing. And this has all happened because they were making the right choices, they made the right investments, and they accelerated the whole momentum of what they wanted to achieve. So this is another example. Take examples of the nations. Look at Taiwan, New Zealand, Vietnam. They all did the right, they acted early. They acted, of course, it was an overreaction. Some said it is too early, but they have proven everyone wrong. And they took the right decisions. They learned from the past. SARS, when SARS happened in 2003, they learned their lessons from there, and they acted fast. And this is where, I mean, they are in a better situation today. When everyone is struggling, they are sitting comfortable today. And this is where, I mean, we can clearly see there are so many examples of people making the right choices and effectively not facing this situation just like many other people are doing it, because, I mean, they just did not act rightly. So these are all some of the things. But as a leader, this is where it's important. In times of crisis, you have to lead from the front. You, as a leader, as an individual, this is where these are testing times. Your customers, your people are testing you out. This is where you are tested for what you stand. This is the time when they truly test you as to what you speak and what you say is what you, I mean, is what you're doing. And they test you out whether you're delivering what you're promising. And they're testing you out whether you're prepared to walk an extra mile, whether you're stretching yourself out for your customers and your people. So as a leader, these are real testing times, I mean, because crisis is an opportunity for a lot of people to really show their characters. And this is where, I mean, lot many people, they fail to act. And I mean, of course, and as I said, I mean, crisis is the time when you see the real character of the companies and the people. And this is the time when you really have to stand out. You have to, I mean, show your passion and energy so that you can motivate your team, your customers, and effectively help them to come out of this together. And I mean, I must say one thing more, Pankaj. I think is staying positive is another important point, which I think as a leader we have to be, and we have to train our mind to look beyond the immediate horizon. And I've seen so many people, they fail to see beyond the immediate horizon. I mean, because they're so much lost in the chaos of what is happening immediately. And this, as a leader, I think is very important. I mean, that you can see beyond the immediate horizon and take the lead and guide your team to really look beyond what is happening. And finally, I must say, I mean, there's no shortcut to success. I mean, you have to do the hard work. You have to be laser focused. You have to have your integrity right, and you have to be nimble-footed to be if you were to stand any chance of leading or be a successful leader. And so, in a nutshell, I mean, this is what I would say. I mean, it's a very testing time. A lot of, I mean, it requires a lot of character. And it really tests you out. I mean, and not many people can survive those stuff.
So leading from the front, and this particular crisis definitely tests every leader, and what is required that he takes up the opportunity head on and really works hard to ensure that the objectives are fulfilled. Thank you so much, Vikas, for your mind and heart talks. It was great interacting with you in Vyaapt Global Growth Series.
Thank you, Pankaj. It was my honor. As I said previously, thank you again to invite me, and I look forward to further interaction with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.